Flash is a movie I've heard that was coming out for as long ago as can be, and I just thought it was something that wasn't going to happen. But when I finally watched it, I can say that I understand why it took a while to come out, and this movie is a mess, but it's one of those few times where I will agree that it was so bad that it was good. And despite how messy of a movie it was very entertaining, and the largest part of what made it entertaining was how freaking ridiculous it was. Despite this, the movie didn't do well on its opening, and I listed my reasons as to why. I speculate that in one video that's linked to this one, so you guys can go check that out if you wish. What I can say is that this movie, despite how entertaining it is, definitely feels like a dying ember in what was once the extended DC cinematic universe. The Ezra Miller version of Flash is a very interesting spin on the character, a jittery, angsty, and pain-stricken individual who is suffering from the loss of his mother, or the pain attached to losing his mother when he was much younger. When we hop into the movie, it takes place after the events of Man of Steel and the whole Zod thing. It also takes place after the events of the Justice League movie, which explains why the Flash knows Ben Affleck's Batman and Aquaman and Wonder Woman. And it can leave people feeling a bit jaded and like this movie is kind of unnecessary, seeing as these other movies have culminated ending up leading nowhere. Like, there's nothing left of that universe since James Gunn is coming in and resetting everything. But let's just say that you're not privy to all those other events and news that are happening outside of the movies. Let's say you're just a moviegoer that sees the movies and that's where your life and the knowledge of the movie and everything tied to it ends. You would probably feel as though this universe is very messy and disorganized, especially compared to Marvel, which is the direct competitor of DC, especially in the cinematic universe. So I know a lot of people fell off because things just didn't make sense. Things led nowhere. The Justice League came together, but these other characters that came out of nowhere didn't get their own movies in time or at all. And so it left them wondering, what is even the point? You keep rebooting Superman, you keep rebooting Batman. Like, there's nothing to hang on to and to invest in to make you feel as though you're going to get a return on the investment. With Marvel, Infinity War and Endgame was basically a payoff, a massive payoff for people who have spent many years with the phases of the MCU, because these characters did have their own movies, but there was a linear arc that was happening. It was leading to somewhere and they got that payoff. And so people stayed on it and everything kind of interconnected. So in that way, especially in early Marvel MCU, I know that's kind of redundant, people knew what to expect. They knew that most likely anything that was put out by Marvel was going to be connected to this whole story, and it left them wanting to get as much of the story as possible because it was all leading to an endpoint, to an end game. With DC, we didn't really have that. It was just haphazardly thrown together, and so there was no need for people to really sign on to watch all these other superhero movies because they were barely tied in, if even at all. So the spoiler-free overview of this movie storyline is basically Barry feels like his life is useless and he's only designated to the janitor of the Justice League having to clean up Batman's messes. So we immediately think, oh, this movie is going to be about Barry proving himself to be more than that, which doesn't ever really happen. He ends up being the person who actually makes a big mess, which he then in turn has to clean up. But it ended up being completely gratuitous. There was no payoff for that. There was no point of even saying that, because that's what I thought. I thought that's what they were doing when they opened the movie. It was going to be about Barry being this larger than life, taking on something larger than life and changing it. When, I know this is probably a little bit of spoilers, but we did see this in the trailer, he turns back time and makes a mess and has to end up cleaning it up. We see also that Barry is also dealing with the personal strife of his father being present for killing his mom, an act Barry is sure his father did not commit, and after seeing his father with his mom through the flashbacks, we, the audience, kind of believe it as well. Even though in the back of my mind, I'm wondering, did his father do it? But they never really explain who did it, even though the TV show version of The Flash, they do give us an explanation. That's never really given. I mean, it kind of is. They claim that it's a burglar, but that's never really proven. But the whole point of it is Barry's father is innocent, and Barry wants his father to be exonerated because his father's been in prison for a long time. So Barry lost his mom, but he also in turn lost his father because now everyone thinks his father's a murderer. Because Barry can now run fast enough to tamper with time, the rest of the movie involves him going back in time to try and save his mom and reaping the consequences of such. You know, the whole butterfly effect situation. He essentially ends up creating a multiverse, which is almost exactly the same thing that happened with the Tom Holland Spider-Man situation. And that in turn creates this revolving door of mistakes that really comes down to him having to try to clean up his own mess through a past version of himself. Now, I will say the Flash as a character in this movie is actually pretty intriguing, and as I've said before, Ezra Miller does a great job with this role. The actor is clearly talented and definitely knows how to tap into those deeper emotions to make you believe the expressions of upset or excitement. It's interesting seeing the two versions of Barry. The one we know is more mature, and he's a lot more jaded based on what he's experienced. Younger Barry, who had not gotten his powers yet, is silly and flippant and doesn't take life seriously, kind of like a carbon copy of the actual actor in real life, which many people wouldn't know probably. Younger version, or pre-power Barry, also takes things for granted. One thing I love that this movie did is that they gave Barry a very clear character development and arc. Our Barry, the present Barry, the main Barry. There are many different characters also in this movie, but our Barry that we know, main Barry, the one that goes back in time, does have the most growth in this movie. It's a testament to people also who probably would imagine themselves going back in time and speaking to a younger version of themselves and just cringing at how immature that version of themselves is. Like, I mean, when I first saw Barry's actual character, I was laughing, but it was so freaking cringe. So we have Flash Barry, or main Barry as we call him. Going into spoilers, further spoilers, our Barry definitely has a lot of trauma from having walked in and seen his mom stabbed. The only thing that I found really interesting is we never get to see who stabbed his mother. As I said, that really is never resolved. Like, everyone thinks it's his father, and we know it's not his father, but that's where it stops. That's it. You go back in time far enough, but you never actually see who does it, because I guess it's not integral to the story, which I figured would have been, but they just completely forget it, because I guess why shine the light on the criminal, you know? He's just a poor, unfortunate soul who happened to walk in on someone's private abode doing their own business, and then I guess things went left, as Barry put it, and then he just gets off scot-free. There's no justice for that guy whatsoever. The father went to prison, but we never bring the actual guy who killed his mother to justice, which I thought was a bit weird. In the TV show, like I said, it was Reverse Flash, but even if they weren't going to go that route with it, I would have expected a little bit of justice there. But I think it was more about Barry and his pain and wanting to save his mom. But I'm sorry, hero or not, I would expect someone to bring justice to a freaking criminal who comes in and just kills a poor woman who is innocent. Because, you know, as a superhero, you understand if you're going to change the course of time, that same person who did this is going to go out and do this to the rest of people. So I thought that was weird, like at the end of the movie when he did show that his father didn't do it. Part of that didn't involve going and seeing who did, but I guess it wasn't important because he was like, it happened a long time ago. I just want my father to be okay, even if that criminal gets off scot-free, whatever. Because now that his father's innocent, there still lies the question that there was a freaking psycho around there going around just stabbing people or breaking into people's homes and hurting them. But anyway, we have Silly Barry. Silly Barry, as I call him, is the most annoying thing in this entire movie, especially when we first meet him. However, he does kind of grow on you as time goes by and he learns to respect actual Barry. He has to do a whole bunch of growing in such a short space of time, and I do enjoy the dynamic between them because Barry has lost his powers after trying to make sure that his past self, aka Silly Barry, gets them. Something that I definitely saw coming from a mile away, especially when he was tussling with Silly Barry who didn't want to get electrocuted. The whole thing, the whole idea of him yelling at his younger self or his more immature self was actually very intriguing, and the dynamic between them, the characters themselves, the action scenes, as corny as they were, was done in a way that was so ridiculously entertaining that it kept your brain preoccupied and excusing the massively horrible CGI, which we'll get into in a minute. But it didn't feel like the movie was almost 3 hours, for me personally. Also, we have Kara, who is basically, I guess, Kal-El's cousin, Supergirl. I have to be honest, when I first saw the trailer, I really didn't think I was going to like Supergirl. It's not like I didn't think she was going to do a good job, she just never appealed to me as a character in general. Even when I've known of her existence before, I'm not particularly interested in her because, to me, she's just a token female version of Superman, sorry. But oh boy, did the girl playing her really surprise me. She looks so familiar. Like, I thought she was Selena Gomez, but I don't know. I don't know her name. I don't remember where I've seen her before. Can't put my finger on who she is. But anyway, she does a great job with this character. She makes you believe her. I mean, she is a female character and she's strong and badass, but she's also humble and genuine. Which, funny enough, it sucks saying this, but it seems as though this is a very alien concept for modern day Hollywood movies when it comes to writing female characters and portraying them. They always end up making us look bossy and bitchy, and like we have to put our foot down on the necks of male characters for us to seem as though we're strong. It's very demeaning, and honestly, if we're gonna throw around that word, kind of misogynistic. Like, the only way females can look strong is if you make the males look weak. You gotta nerf the males so the females can look good, am I right? Like, that's not what we're doing. And in here, they didn't do that nasty crap. And I'm actually kind of grateful for that. I thought they were gonna do it. I didn't know anything about her going in, and I was pleasantly surprised. She embodies Superman, or at least what Kryptonians related to Superman would feel like. In the fight she had with Zod, when she learned about what happened to her little cousin, I could feel the pain. She really did an awesome job. And I don't even know who she is as an actor, but she made a lasting impression on me. She ate that role up. There were so many different characters in this movie, or at least at times the movie did feel a bit clunky with all the characters, but they actually managed to make the characters feel as though that they were there and like they mattered. Even though some of them you can say were kind of underused in this movie, that honestly feels like it should have been 2 other movies tied to this. One of those being like a Batman movie with Michael Keaton, because Michael Keaton, that's his name, right? Keaton, whatever. Where we have him come back. Most of this is just special effects anyway. I mean, can we say Bollywood? I know it's those Bollywood Nigerian action movies and the old Chinese ones, like, it's giving that. It's redonkulous. Like, half the time, I was wondering to myself, what am I freaking watching? But you know, the story and the acting kind of helped with that. Like I said, you can have really bad CGI, but if you had good acting and a decent story, it will work. Likewise, you have the opposite end of the spectrum where movies that have expert CGI and just horrible storytelling elements. So no matter how much the special effects cost or how grandiose they look, if the story is ass, people still dislike it because it's just essentially wallpaper. And this, they made up for that. They cheapened on that, but they did make up for the entertainment factor of it. They looked like they didn't take themselves seriously. This felt like Wes Anderson did this movie. It felt like James Gunn's humor a little bit as well. Zod, the character, oh, speaking of Zod, oh boy. Oh, I cannot get enough of him. And maybe that's because he's played by Michael Shannon, who I think is a absolute heartthrob and a badass. He always does villains so well, but manages to look so charming as he does it. He's such an intimidating square-jawed man. It's almost as though he's cut from a different cloth, you know? Like, it's like he stands like 7 feet tall, like a freaking god. He just looks at you with those steely eyes, and you feel as though you're gonna melt in on yourself. I feel like if I were standing in front of him and he gave me that grilling look that he often gives people he's about to beat down or that he's trying to intimidate, I would just, no words would need to be said. I would just involuntarily just cower before him and respond with, "Yes, master."
We have been fucking up.
I know it sounds freaking weird, but he would be excellent in a Dom sub movie. Freakishness aside, sorry, I know, I always go there. I apologize.
You need help. You need professional help.
He was excellent as Zod once again. Even better. Maybe that's just me. Maybe I don't know. Maybe that's just it. Moving on. Anyway, the part that I really liked is when Flash and Kara were working together and they made that cyclone and Kara is beating up Zod. They're like, "Yeah, we're doing this." And then Zod takes a deep breath and he's like, oh, internally he's just like, "Enough of this shit. Okay, y'all forgot that I was Kryptonian too, right? Okay, let's have a reminder, shall we?" That was freaking amazing. I love him. Oh my God. I love that they brought him back. I know some people are going to be like, there was no need for him to come back. This was too clunky. Yes, it was. It was maddening, but it was excellent. I loved it. The mother character, she was great. She was a great pick for Barry's mom. She felt like a mom. And in the end, when she managed to hug Barry when he was trying to correct things and she hugged him in the grocery store, not even realizing that this is her son from the future, that made me cry. She actually felt like his mom, and you could feel the warmth of her personality and her nurturing aura through the screen. This movie did serious beats very well as much as the funny ones. Like, it didn't make you feel as though it had to crack a joke to break up a serious, tense, poignant moment, and I did appreciate that. That is something that I never thought that I would take for granted, but nowadays with superhero movies, like led by MCU, it's like, you can't have serious parts in movies anymore, especially with the later phases. I don't know what's going on, But they're like Guardians of the Galaxy. People like to laugh. Hardy har har. Someone's dying. There's a redeeming moment when it's supposed to be serious. Let's crack a joke. And it's so misplaced. I did a video on that as well, going further into that, because that is highly annoying. To the point where when you don't see it happen, you're so grateful. And I think the Flash movie did that very well. One confusing aspect of this, though, that I know some people are probably going to hate me for, and I have no idea why, but they somehow made the Flash Hispanic, which was, I don't know, kind of weird. The character on screen was never that. So it's kind of funny how Hollywood being anal, like, okay, they want to change it, sure, I guess. It was enough for me to be confused, because at first they sounded Italian, and I'm like, they're not speaking Italian, though. Like, they're speaking Espanol, so what's happening? I was really confused, because that's not something I thought, I don't know, maybe it's a minor thing, maybe it's not, maybe it's this universe's Flash, but it's like saying that Tom Holland, and he's like, "Sac passe, ma." Like, and you're like, what? So that's a minor thing. It just confused me for a short moment. But anyway, I quickly forgot about it. I was like, whatever. Maybe they just speak Spanish because they're in the area. Who knows? But his mom uses Hispanic, just like everything else was just weird. Barry's father was not the central point in this movie, but he was one of the things that Barry's trying to save, so he's the focal point for Barry. He's a motivation for Barry, I guess. Mostly his mom, but also his father, basically his parents. Imagine losing the love of your life, and then on top of that, everyone thinks you're the criminal and the person that took her life, so you rot in prison while that person is out free, probably taking other people's lives. You can't even be there for your son because you're in jail for a crime that you did not commit. I mean, this thing happens in real life to people. But it's the reason why Barry went into forensics, because he wanted to help prove his father's innocence, which means his father must have been in prison for a very long time. We do have Ben Affleck's Batman make an appearance in this, but Batman, or at least Ben Affleck's Batman, isn't really a central figure in this as well. We know that he's Barry's friend, but he basically functions in the exact role that Doctor Strange did with Tom Holland's Spider-Man, because you need to have someone there who's like a mentor figure to tell you that you shouldn't go back in time and mess with things because you could fracture the multiverse. And Batman, Ben Affleck's Batman, was basically that. Keaton's Batman, Mr. Keaton, was in this as well, and from what people are saying, he was an older version of Batman. I think I vaguely remember seeing a movie like that on... Was Batman and Robin, the one with Robin, the cute guy who played Robin. Was he the Batman for that movie? I have to look that up. I don't know. He had that voice... But I do remember Robin. Robin was hot. When I saw that, I was like, oh, dude, wow. But anyway, Keaton's Batman actually felt more like Batman than Ben Affleck's Batman. I do remember thinking that Ben Affleck's Batman didn't feel like Batman. I like Ben Affleck in older movies I've seen with him. He just didn't feel like Batman. His face is so long. It's like a freaking head spine. It just did not fit back. I know that makes no freaking sense. It just felt odd, the casting, for me personally. I was like, dude, you're not a good Bruce Wayne, but you're not a good Batman either. You're just there because you're Ben, but you're not Batman, sorry. It's always bizarre every time. You'd think I'd get used to it by now, but I have not gotten used to seeing Ben Affleck as Batman. It's just bizarre, bro. But I was cracking up when Keaton's Batman caught the two Barrys in the house.
Oh. You are?
Yeah. I'm Batman.
Let's get in the limelight.
He sneaks up on them like a freaking dromaeosaur, and I'm like, what is going on right now? And I gotta tell you guys, like, when we went to the movie theater, there was only like 4 people in there. A guy that took his father to see it because it was Father's Day, we saw it. And then 2 other guys that were behind us. And the guy in front of us, his father was cracking up the entire time. So I'm cracking up, and he's cracking up. And then I'm done laughing, but he's still cracking up, which makes me crack up, which makes him crack up. And as my husband puts it, there was like a laugh feed loop going on between the both of us throughout the entire movie. He just made it like 20 times better. And one of the scenes that happened was when Batman's beating up Barry because Barry lost his powers. So he's just getting this shit beat up. Oh, that scene was so freaking hilarious. I don't know why it was so funny. This new Barry has his powers, and he's like, I don't know what to do. Oh, just move out of the way while my friend is... Yo, whoever is responsible for the freaking humor in this movie, we need to have a drink together. I don't drink, but still, I would have a drink with you because you're freaking hilarious. Like, the humor in this movie is just so freaking wild. And I was actually surprised because I'm sure Keaton is an old man, but if he's doing his own stunts, great. I don't think he is, but good grief, they made it look so hilarious. Oh man, but Keaton's Batman has this air about him that just embodies Batman, and the action scenes with him Batmaning just fills me with so much nostalgia, and I don't exactly remember why. Like, I vaguely recall my daddy getting me a toy when I was a baby that looked identical to the aircraft that Keaton Batman had. It had the bat ears at the back of the plane, and I'm like, my fingers feel fuzzy. I remember holding something like that looked like that with the Batman thing on it, and the wings moved, and I was like, I could have sworn Daddy gave me a toy like that. Because he had some, like, models and stuff like that, and he would give me, like, some of his stuff, and then he would find, like, toys. Like, he'd always bring home a toy for me every single day. I had so many toys. I was an only child at the time, but I had so many freaking toys. And I remember he brought me a lot of Batman toys because I was intrigued by Batman. I must have seen it somewhere, but that just immediately clicked in my mind when I saw it. I don't remember why. But anyway, Clooney's Batman, that was at the end of the movie. Now, I do remember seeing George Clooney as Batman. I think he might have been the one with Robin, with the hot Robin guy, with what's her face? The green woman, Ivy League or something? Princess Ivy, Poison Ivy? Something like that. I think those two are together because I remember the kissing scene. I was a freaking pervy child. Leave me alone. I remember a kissing scene with them, and I think she poisoned people with her kiss, and she kissed Robin and she kissed Batman. And I remember I was staying, my parents weren't there, and I was looking at this and I was like, like, I don't know why that freaking scene was so sensual. It's like one of the only things I remember about that, her kissing them. And I'm pretty sure it was George Clooney, because I also remember, as young as I was, George Clooney was also hot. Call me crazy. Every time I see this man, it's like you always see progressive pictures of him, like when he was younger, and then like now, and then like later, and he always looks better every time you see him. What in the ass is that? What is wrong with this person? Why is he aging like that? It's so freaking bizarre. And it's not just a man thing, it's a George Clooney thing. Everybody else gets old. Leonardo DiCaprio gets old, won't date people over 25, and that's fine, you know, but he's kind of showing his age. Keanu Reeves a little bit showing his age, and it's like, all right, you still look good, you're aging very well. George Clooney, though, is like a freaking Pokemon. Every evolution gets better, and it's like, I don't know what's wrong with you, but I don't like that. I like it, but I don't like it because I like it. It's very bizarre. I don't like that. Anyway, going into the special effects.
Christmas!
I'm Batman.
Or the lack thereof. Oh my god. If there's one thing you could say about this movie is its strong points were not its special effects. And then the director or whoever came out later on and was trying to say, oh, well, we meant to have it look like that because, they were so bad that I actually half believe him. I believe him when he says he was trying to make them look bad on purpose, because no amount of excuses you give me that you are doing your best is going to make me believe that you actually meant to put this out and give to the audience. There's people on YouTube doing better special effects than this. Please, there are 14-year-old kids doing better special effects than this. Do not tell me that a movie with a nearly $400 million budget, you know what I'm saying? Like, what is... I don't even know what to say. I don't even know what to say. Like, when I started watching the B-movie stuff, one of the things that made me feel very annoyed was the special effects. You guys can watch me go crazy with some of those movies that I reviewed. I actually have a playlist for them. And this is exactly what this movie is giving with these special effects. Or the lack thereof, I should say. Everything that you see in this movie looks like someone put a Barbie doll in the microwave, and then they put it up on high and forgot it was in there, and the melted plastic, they take it off, and then try to recreate it and put it on a human model. And whatever lack of semblance comes about with you trying to do that, that's what some of the models look like for this movie. They're horrid and they're comical. They're so horrible that I actually believe this is comedy. This is peak comedy. Like the Nicolas Cage Superman, the whole thing where they're going back in time. And I will say, when it comes to speedster stuff, Quicksilver and X-Men did it way better than anything else I've ever seen. But him running backwards and the oh god, everything looks like it's made of wax. I I don't even know what to say, so we're just gonna skip past that. But good grief, if you're going here expecting, watching this movie thinking that you're gonna get peak quality, yeah, whoever was responsible for the finishing touches of this movie decided, you know, we're not gonna make this money back, and we've already overspent with our budget. So just animators or whatever, just go home, or the animators just quit. They were like, bro, whatever you got is what you got. You can't pay us more money. This movie's gonna flop. We're done. We're done. Why bother? Why bother? We're paid already, so we don't really want our names attached to this. So you know what? Just leave our names out. We got the money. I don't even want to put my name anywhere near this. You know, and it shows. But like I said, the entertainment factor kind of makes up for that. But yeah, this movie was a trip. This movie was a trip. I don't even know what to properly say. It was fun. The messages behind it when, you know, we saw that weird thing when Barry's going back in time and he saw this human entity kick him out of the, what is it called? The chrome ball of time? Or something to that sort. And I'm like, what is that? Is that Reverse Flash? Doesn't look like Reverse Flash. And then it's revealed later, which I did I did know. You do see it coming from a mile away, close to the end of the movie, but right next to it. Like, you don't know the entirety of the movie that that's the case, but later on, there are things that start to happen when you're like, oh. So that was never addressed, but this is what it is. And it shows Barry, like, what can become of him if he becomes obsessed with trying to take control of this power that he has. And you learn that there are certain things that you can control, and no matter how you try, there are certain things that you can't. Some intersectional points that just never change, that are responsible for making you who you are. Like, if I were to go back in time, would I undo all the things that happened to me and those that I loved? Probably not. I probably wouldn't want to, because who I am now as a person, my strength, my mental fortitude, I believe that's a result of me having gone through those struggles. Who I am today, all of what makes me me and my identity is a result and a culmination of all those experiences, and that's what Batman was trying to tell Flash. So I think it was a really interesting message. Not like anybody watching can go back in time and change things, but I think it's also a really interesting message for the audiences of today, of modernity. Like, stop trying so hard to harp on things that you cannot change. Injustices happened in the past. Fix what you can now. Stop trying to punish yourself or others around you for things that had nothing to do with you. So I think it was really sweet, and you see Barry, younger Barry, see that version of himself and realize, wow, you're old now. You've been doing this for a long time, trying to change something, and you're bitter because of it, you know? And he didn't want to go that route. And when we lose him, I was crying. Even though it's still the same person playing it, they made you believe they're two different people. You do have the younger Barry grow on you, so you do feel the loss when it comes. And I do feel lost in this movie. When you have to say goodbye to his mom, put back the soup, you feel the loss. He did try to save his father and put the soup can on top of the counter or the shelf so that his father would look up at the camera so the alibi would stick and his father gets out. So that's something he changed that didn't really change. But even in that, even though he knows, okay, if I change something, it affects everything else. But my father, though, like, he really wants to help his dad. And honestly, I can't even blame him, because if I were in that situation, I could help my father, and I was sure that I wasn't going to change anything else, I would do it because it's still a future thing that's happening. So I guess he thought it could be excused. And then George Clooney's Batman comes out and he's like, what in the world? So he did change something about the past. Now here's the messed up part that I thought about afterwards, right? So if he changed the past, and based on Batman Keaton explaining the whole spaghetti time thing, that when you change something, you make a new spaghetti noodle with a new past and future. It's a completely different one than the other one that you were at. So if he changed this past and now you've branched off and you're in a completely different timeline because you made one change in the past, then that means that his actual father, who's stuck in jail, is still stuck in jail. Like, his new father in this new timeline that he's created is free, but his actual father in his actual timeline is still gonna rot in prison for the rest of his life. Not only that, but his son, who he used to talk to all the time, he's not there because Barry no longer exists in that universe. He left, right? Or is that how it works? Because if he creates a new timeline, it's not like he goes back in time and then another version of himself replaces himself. That doesn't happen. He left. So it's, from what I'm understanding, correct me if I'm wrong, it feels as though it's like a Miles Morales situation. I don't want spoilers for Across the Spider-Verse, but you know. So go away if you haven't watched that movie yet. But it almost feels like a Miles Morales situation where he's in a completely different universe or completely different parallel timeline. And that means there's a void in his timeline. So his father is rotting in prison, but he's all alone and knows not what has become of his son. That's pretty scary. I believe that what was helping that father live is knowing that he would get that call from Barry. And now Barry's just disappeared. And not only that, the Flash has disappeared. I don't know if people are going to connect the dots, but all the things that Flash was doing to help that universe, well, that's gone too. No more Flash. Now there's this weird domino effect of things that happen. You know, that's kind of awful if you think about it that way. Nobody really thinks about that. And I don't even think Barry thought about it like that because he's probably not smart enough to, but I'm sure at some point he would connect the dots and say, wait a minute. Okay, so if this has changed and based on what Michael Keaton Batman or whatever his name is said, my dad is still back there. Like that's crazy. I don't want to think that way. That's so freaking sad. This would be a great Father's Day movie because he gets to be with his father at the end. But then you don't want to think about the possibility that his actual father is there rotting away in prison for something he didn't do. Like, that's really scary. That's very scary. I don't like that. Anyway, the movie, the overall view of the film that I have is that, at least for the messaging, the importance of moms and dads in your life. Like, you could be surprised, like even with Bruce Wayne being a central figure in the portrayal of what happens as a result of someone's traumatic experiences tied to their parents. It is so important, the role that parents play in your lives. And I know that people, you know, we probably bitch and like, oh, my parents are so annoying, you know, but there's a reason why your parents know certain things, they have certain experiences, and parents do not like when people mess with their offspring. They will do everything to hell and back to provide for you, to defend you. So I thought it was really interesting to see Barry on that side of the scale where he is basically in that position where he has to be the parent or has to try and defend or protect his parents. You know, that was really something that stood out to me, especially on Father's Day. You know, it made me appreciate my dad because he could be in that situation too. It was a decent, entertaining movie. Now, was it a great movie? For the entertainment value, yes. For the organization of it and presentation, it was very messy. It was a very chaotic, messy movie. It was one of those movies that I feel like people in like a college party would put on and get drunk and watch for shits and giggles and just be like, remember that crazy ass movie we all watched, bro? And they're like, let's put it on again every year. It becomes like this routine that people just sit down and just get high and watch how this movie just melts their brains, because that is what it felt like. It was a laugh fest. It was hilarious. That being said, I don't know if Ezra is going to come back as the Flash. I don't know if you guys can hear that weird squeaking in distress. It's my hamster. I don't know what the mice are doing. I think one of the mice are trying to them or something. Anyway, I don't think that Ezra is going to come back as the Flash. Gunn is rebooting everything, despite what people say. The actor is very volatile. So I imagine the studios going forward are going to be like, okay, we can pay less money to someone who's sane and who doesn't have all these issues, or we can keep just throwing a coin up in the air and hoping it doesn't explode over all of us and we get covered in wet slime and then have to drink it and then get constipated. Don't know where I'm going with this. The point of the matter is it a movie that you'd probably want to pay for? A lot of people would probably say no. I personally wouldn't mind paying to go see it again. That's just me personally. I enjoyed it. It was hilarious. I would want to see it again because it was entertaining. I don't know if it's going to be a rewatchable, entertaining thing all the time, but it was definitely an endearing, stupid movie. I really don't usually like stupid movies, but this is one of the exceptions. And Ezra sold it. Keaton sold it. Kara was great. This movie was a mess. What do you guys think? I know there's a lot of people who hate it. I'd like to hear where you're coming from, why you hated it, and why you loved it. That being said, movies like this are what people need in terms of entertainment. I'm not talking about, I mean, it could definitely be 20 times, 50 times better, but studios have been so annoying with what they're putting out that it's making people feel a little weary and annoyed at movies. And when the movies actually come out that are good, because they've already messed up their entire arc or their phase because they're doing all this crap and being messy. I don't just mean just haphazardly putting things together, but like with the DC universe, for example, them trying so hard to make money and compete with Marvel that they don't remember to actually hire writers that can create a cohesive story and to stay on track when it comes to certain stories or universes. They keep rebooting things. The writers suck. The quality sucks. I don't know what's going on, but people will get tired of that. So when you do actually put out something that's entertaining, there's no reason for people to invest in it. And unfortunately, the DCU universe, the Marvel universe, coming from the comic book thing, you have made it in such a way that people expect that things to tie in. That's what you did. That's the bed that you made. And so people expected to get tucked in. And then when they lie in the bed and they don't get tucked in, they get it shoved up their ass. They're gonna be like, what the hell, dude? I thought we were getting tucked in. I didn't want to get tucked.
What?
Okay, so this is just evolving into madness. This is why it's good to write scripts. Anyways, thanks so much for watching. This has been Alteori. You ask, we answer.